15 years old, and vast majority are males. By the way, this is military age in a lot of countries south of the border. So we're creating a false narrative for people.
But it's not under U.S. law or basic morality. I mean, so now you're telling me that we're expelling military age males. I just gave you an example of a 4-year-old child.
Let me ask you something. Yeah, I think a 4-year-old child we should take care of. I think there's a big difference between a 4-year-old crying child and a 17-year-old male. Don't you agree with that?
Congressman, how about 12-year-old child Gustavo, who was sent back to Guatemala where his family are not, unaccompanied child with learning difficulties? Donald Trump sent him back. I think it's a good thing we're not doing that. If the Republican Party thinks it's a good thing to send those children back, say so. Just own it.
You don't think it's a good idea to reunite that person through government services in their home country with their family? You don't think that's a good policy? He wasn't reunited with his family.
How do you know? He wasn't reunited with his family, unfortunately.
How do you know? How did he end up at the border?
Maybe you should do some
research, to use your phrase.
Look up Gustavo after the show is over. Let me ask you about what we talked about, what we were talking about on Twitter. You said to me on Twitter on Friday that the solution to all the border issues are the Trump policies: remain in Mexico and asylum cooperation agreements with the Northern Triangle countries. 70,000 people were sent to Mexico under the remain in Mexico policy out of 1.5 million people encountered at the border. That's less than 5%. That's hardly a solution. And do you know how many migrants were sent by the US to Honduras and El Salvador under these, what you called very important asylum cooperation agreements a moment ago? Do you know the number?
Well, they're not sent. The point of an asylum cooperation agreement is that you don't have to go through the human smuggling routes to get to the border and claim asylum. You can do it in your home country or a neighboring country. So it's much more humane to do that instead of saying, hey, pay off these drug cartels. You know, drug cartels are making $30 million a month off of these policies. Now to reference the MPP program that you just talked about, yeah, they don't send everybody back through the MPP program. It's a portion of them. That's why it's such a small portion. But that's also what got the situation under. But that's what solution. Right, it's an incentive structure. So when people believe, hey, there's a chance I might just get sent back to Mexico. I was going to claim asylum, even though I don't really have a valid claim to it. Okay, there's less of an incentive to just come across. If people believe, well, it says the data, about 10% to 20% end up being granted asylum. So that tells you something.
Congressman, PolitiFact already checked you on this, and they said your claims on asylum are false. We know that. But I need you to answer my question.
Let's address that. Let's address that because that's not a fact check.
Congressman, I need you to answer my question. How many people were sent to El Salvador and Honduras under the asylum cooperation agreement?
Again, it's not a send back kind of agreement. Okay, it was some are, but I don't have numbers on me.
How many were sent? But how many were sent?
I don't have that data.
Roughly.
I don't have that data on me. I'm not sure. Again, that policy is about claiming asylum.
No one was ever sent.
That's because it's not.
Yeah, no, it was.
I just explained to you what the policy is. You're not listening.
But you're telling me that was the solution that brought down the numbers. How can it bring down the numbers?
You can apply for asylum there. Are you confused? No, the asylum cooperation agreement is...
Congressman, yes.
You're not...
It was never implemented in El Salvador and Honduras, and only 945 people were sent to Guatemala.
It's not about sending people. It's about being able to apply there.
Is my point.
It's not...
Yeah, and no one ever was sent there, is my point.
It's not about sending people there. It's about being able to apply while you're there.
The asylum cooperation agreement was about sending people to Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador.
No, it's not.
I need to ask.
You're confused about confused about what that policy is.
I got to ask this last question about the migration.
The MPP program is about sending
smugglers. You talk about MPP. You talk about it being a good way of stopping smugglers. Human rights groups like Human Rights First have found 1,500 people, reports of abuse, kidnapping, murder, torture in Mexico. Thanks to this program, people on that program. MSF found 3 out of 4 of their patients sent to Mexico under the Remain in Mexico program were kidnapped. You're okay with that? You're okay with the cost of that program, the human cost?
It's not caused by that program. It's caused by human smuggling issues. Look, actually, DHS investigated those claims, and what they found, and by the way, those claims refer to about 1.5% of the total MPP population, okay, if we take them at face value. But DHS, concerned about this, DHS investigated those claims, and they found that, yes, there's a possibility you're going to get assaulted. You might be back into the human smuggling routes if you leave the state-run facilities in Mexico. That's the truth. That's what the government investigation found. So, look, if you stay within the parameters of this facility, it was safe. And we should never want people to be unsafe. But also, and I gotta fact check your fact check there on the PolitiFact thing. Look, just because you add fact check to a title on an op-ed doesn't make it a fact check. The fact remains about 10% from Northern Tribal countries are adjudicated for granting asylum. Okay, that fact check was talking about the other 90%, and they claimed, oh, it's not because they're denied. Sometimes they don't show up, and other administrative issues. That was quibbling. It wasn't a fact check.
I did look at the fact check, and many people would argue that the Trump administration made it impossible to apply for asylum here, which is one of the main reasons we have this crisis at the border.
Can I ask you something?
Sadly, we're out of time, Congressman. You made your point. We got to go. But my thanks to Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas for accepting my invitation to come on the show tonight. Appreciate you taking time out.
Anytime.
Many in your shoes wouldn't have done so. Thank you for your time.
Anytime.
Coming up,
thanks for having me.
We're warming up my 1-minute timer.